It's that time of year again. In just a few weeks, we are going to be celebrating International Punch Needle Rug Cooking Day. And every year for the celebration, a free commemorative pattern is released to get people into punch needling. This year's commemorative pattern and theme is called Connections, and it was created by fellow Oxford certified instructor Cotey Gallagher. In Cotey's words, International Punch Needle Rug Cooking Day is more than just a celebration. It's a tapestry of connection, linking fiber artists through tradition, creativity, and the simple pleasure of making something beautiful, one loop at a time. My first thought when I saw this pattern was that it reminded me of a retro video game like Pac-Man, or even just an arcade in general. So I'm gonna switch up this color palette to reflect that and make it completely different from the original. But the first thing I'll need to do before that is get the pattern onto my monk's cloth. I have some here that I've ironed, cut out, and taped to a window on top of my pattern. I'm glad that the pattern is small enough that I can trace it like this, instead of having to put a light underneath a glass coffee table, like I do with some of my bigger or more complicated projects. I traced the pattern with a black Sharpie, and now I'm stretching it onto my gripper frame. This gripper frame is about 25 by 25 centimeters, or 10 by 10 inches, perfect for this pattern. And once I have it drummed tight, I can start punching. So what my idea is that I'm actually going to do a monocolor border. So the border is going to be black as well as the background, but I'm highlighting the border by punching it with the Oxford 10 regular punch needle and by using the stem stitch so that it still pops out. If you want to learn how to do stitches like the stem stitch, I'm going to link a video. It's going to be in the corner of the screen here. Go check it out. Now this is going to be the highlight of my version of this piece. This is rainbow yarn. I hand dyed it myself almost 2 years ago while I was doing my Oxford punch needle certification. I've only really had a few chances to use it here and there, and not really in any significant capacity. Today we're going to change that. So the idea is that each line will have a gradient of color, and at the end of each line, whatever color we end with, we're going to use that color to punch the circles. So I'm using the Oxford 10 Fine with this yarn, but again, doing a stem stitch so that each of these lines pops out and we see the clear gradient of color. Now, for the circles, this is the part where I'm switching up my loop heights. I want each circle here to kind of stand out, so what I'm going to do is sculpt it. I'm not going to be clipping any loops here, just because I don't feel like it and it's kind of messy. So instead, I'm going to sculpt it with various needle heights. Let me show you. I'm starting off by doing an outline in this darker jade green with my Oxford 10 regular punch needle and doing a stem stitch. Then I'm grabbing some lighter jade green yarn and my Craftsman punch needle to punch the inside. So I'm starting at the number 9 height, and I'm punching around with it until I get back to where I started, clipping the end of my yarn and then pushing the yarn ends through. Then I'm adjusting my punch needle down one to number 8, which creates a slightly taller loop, and then repeating my punching and doing this over and over again until I reach the center and there is no more space to punch needle. I won't show you how it looks just yet, but this technique creates a really cool sculpted look without ever having to pull out your scissors and clip your loops yourself. I'm definitely keeping an eye out on my gradients here. I want to use a wide variety of colors for the circles, which means I have to make sure that my gradients are ending at different spots. This is a great pattern if you have leftover yarn you want to use up, especially because it's not meant to be anything. It's just circles and lines, which means you have the power to make this piece into whatever you want, as opposed to a flower or a scene from nature where you kind of have a subconscious desire to make it according to nature. And I'm going to repeat my sculpting technique again, but now with a different circle and some yellow yarn. I used mostly wool yarn for this. The one exception was the center of this pink circle here, where I used alpaca. Wait, it actually might be a wool alpaca blend, I can't remember. I used it for my punch needle certification rug like 2 years ago, and I still had some left over, so into the commemorative pattern it went. The fun part about this project is that each circle is a different size, and I'm filling it in with different yarn weights. And your stitch spacing in punch needle is heavily dependent on what type of yarn you're using, so each of these circles, even when sculpted, is a different height depending on the yarn I used to fill it in with. Also, every color here for the circles, my intention was to make the outlines and the center related, color-wise. The red circle, the tan color doesn't really look related from the back, but the yarn actually does have flecks of red in it, so that's why I chose it for the center of that circle. Now, to fill in the background, we are filling it in with black, but we're going for a really short loop height here. We've got our worsted weight yarn and the Oxford 14 fine punch needle, the smallest out of all of the punch needles. I really want to highlight the lines and the circles, the connections, so to speak, which is why I'm using the smallest punch needle here for the background. I just want the background to be filled in, nothing flashy. And while I'm filling in the background, I can also start snipping and poking my yarn ends. I feel better about doing this after I've done at least some of the background, because then I know that everything is where it needs to be. You know, everything kind of has a little bit of an outline to it with the black background. So we're gonna fill everything in, take our pattern off our gripper frame, and do some final snipping and poking. And as you can see here, our circles have that neat sculptedness to them. You really can't tell when the ends are unsnipped, but once they're snipped, like you can see, it looks really cool. Now, what we're going to do next is steam press this piece. And because it's sculpted, I'm steam pressing it backwards to not squish our taller loops that we've punched. We want this piece flat, not flattened. So now that our piece is dry, we're going to try something different. I've decided that I'm going to use these commemorative patterns as experiments, and I want to see if I can whip stitch this pattern without ironing. Normally, after you've cut out your sides and your corners, you want to iron in each of them so that they stay in place before you start whip stitching. But I want to see if I can do it without that. So what am I going to use instead? I'm going to use basting tape. This is some old basting tape I've had left over. It's used to temporarily hold things in place while you're sewing or quilting maybe as well, and it washes out with water. And I'm going to try using this to secure my hems to whip stitch this punch needle piece. So I'm going to start off with the corners here. I'm going to tear off a piece of tape it right on the edge of this corner, and then fold it in. And I'm going to repeat that with each of the corners. I don't know if this is going to work, but it's worth a try. Next, I'm going to tear off another piece of tape and apply it to the edge of the sides. And I'm going to fold those sides in. Finally, I'm going to fold the sides in once again, but I'll just hold that with pins instead of basting tape, and it seems to be working pretty well. It's not fraying or anything. Hopefully it doesn't gum up my needles. Let's see. And what better yarn to whip stitch it with than our rainbow yarn? So I'm going to start somewhere on a side here, just a random place, and start whip stitching. If you want a more detailed tutorial video on whip stitching, I have one on my channel. I'll link it in a video card that you'll see right on the side here. So the yarn base of this rainbow yarn is actually Briggs & Little Atlantic, which I don't know how to describe it in any other way other than to say that it's an awkward yarn weight. And what that means is that our whip stitching spacing is going to be really unique and kind of wacky. So basically what I'm doing is I'm whip stitching into every single hole, and then every once in a while, kind of whenever I feel like it, I'm skipping a hole. And I'm going right at the edge of my monk's cloth here, right beside the loops, and when we get to a corner, I have to make my spacing even tighter. So sometimes I'm stitching in every hole, sometimes I'm stitching in between the threads of my monk's cloth, just so I can cover up that entire edge around the corner. And the tricky part about this rainbow yarn is making sure that all of the colors line up, because you can instantly tell if you start at red and then you end at blue and then you start again at red. You'll be able to tell when you've started or stopped. So you want to make sure that you're kind of making the colors flow into each other naturally, even if you have to use smaller lengths of yarn to whip stitch. And I think I did a pretty good job. So I guess this spacing tape technique works. None of my edges frayed on me. They didn't really cause me any problems while I was whip stitching. My needle didn't gum up. So it's a pretty good technique if you have a really tiny hem. Try it out for yourself and see if you like it. So my final step here is going to be to just press it again one more time to make sure that the piece lies flat, and then go over it with a lint roller, and we are finished. Isn't this so cute? I'm actually so obsessed with the rainbow and the colors and just the way they pop on the black background, as well as the black edge here, which gives the piece a nice frame, but it doesn't stand out too much. Yeah, everything about this is great. If you want to punch needle this pattern, it is free. I have linked it in the description of this video. Definitely go check it out. Shout out again to Cotey for designing such an awesome pattern. I had a lot of fun with it. And on March 7th, 2026, consider coming to the International Punch Needle Rug Cooking Day Extravaganza. It's an online event hosted by the Oxford Company, and during the event, there will be a punch-along where you get to punch this pattern. Cotey will be there and she'll talk about her inspiration behind the pattern, and just a lot of fun stuff. There's going to be giveaway prizes. I don't know what the smaller ones are, but the grand prize is a $200 shopping spree to the Oxford Company, which is an awesome grand prize. You have to register for the event on Zoom, so I'm going to put the link to that in the description of this video as well. Definitely consider attending. Thanks so much for watching this video. I know I haven't uploaded a ton. I'm waiting on a really big video of mine to come out. I'm still waiting on a few final steps. I can't really elaborate any further because if I do, I'm gonna spoil the whole video, and that would be no fun. So please be patient with me. If you want to support me, like this video, subscribe to the channel, check out my punch needle patterns on my shop, or just watch some of my other videos and share them with someone who you think would like them. Thanks for all of your support. See you in the next one.